This video off by saying I am not a financial advisor. Should you choose to invest in Bitcoin or any other asset, do your own research or seek the advice of an actual financial advisor, preferably one that knows a thing or two about crypto. Otherwise, you may be wasting your time. Now, first off, I have to point out something. Everybody's getting a little optimistic about the stock market and its recent rally that's been going up and up and up, and it seems to be recovering well. I need to remind you that we have not broken out of these patterns that they have been forming, like the video that I posted a video a while back pointing out that the fall is not over, and that the technical analysis is showing that we're just consolidating. This is an overall bearish trend. We're just going uphill in a consolidation until we break down and go further. And I'll leave that video somewhere above me. The eye will come up. Just click on that if you want to see that video to go into further detail about this. But anyways, I talked about the S&P and quite a few other markets around the world and how they were putting in similar patterns. And anyways, as you can see here, we have not broken out of this bearish pattern yet, and volume is still going on a downhill trend. Although it's starting to round out down here, but still, nothing has changed. It's still in the bearish pattern, and I am still expecting a bearish breakout unless this market proves otherwise. If we continue and if we break out, even if we break out and don't immediately crash, if we break out and just go sideways, then my stance may change on the market. But personally, I don't see that happening. I see us breaking out and having a downwards trend. It may not necessarily be steep like this one, but given the circumstances around the world, I just don't see the markets continuing to climb and climb and climb. The sentiment of what's going on around the world is certainly going to settle into the marketplace, and we're going to see that soon enough. And yeah, anyways, that's really all I have to say about the markets, is that nothing has changed. We're still in the patterns, and it's not just the S&P. There's the Dow Jones, the Nikkei, whatever the hell that's called. The Chinese market's still putting in the same pattern. Yeah, just look on TradingView and see for yourself. You'll see that they're putting in these consolidation patterns that, like the rising wedge or a bear flag or anything along those lines. They're all sort of doing the same thing. But yeah, moving on. Right, now for Bitcoin. As you can see, I put two trend lines in here. One representing the local high and one representing the most recent low. And the reason I did this is going to really determine where Bitcoin's going to head from here. Whichever one Bitcoin breaks first is going to show which direction it's going. I mean, if Bitcoin breaks this high of 74.66, roughly 74.66, that's not exact, but if Bitcoin breaks that high, that means it'll be putting in a new high, thus continuing the uptrend. However, if it does not break above that and ends up going down and breaks the $6,400 area and puts in a new low, that means Bitcoin is starting a downtrend, and so you would expect lower prices in the near term. 64.46 here, that recent low happens to correspond with the low that we put in at the end of 2019 right here for the head of the inverse head and shoulders that we had before we pulled a reversal and headed upwards from there. So that is going to provide a decent amount of support. Plus, back in 2018, the $6,000 area had some trading volume in it, so yes, there is support there. However, we do have a lot of resistance overhead. You can see in the $7,400 area, technically from $7,200 to $7,600 is going to be some decent amount of resistance. That's really the way I can put it. If we break 7,400 and if we break 7,400, I would expect us to continue on upwards. But however, I'm not going to expect this to be a straight shot up because, like I said, there is a decent amount of resistance there. It's going to take some time for us to climb up there through there. Now, if we do break out of the $7,200 to $7,600 area, the next bit of resistance would be roughly at $7,900 to $8,000, $8,100, because first off, the 200 weekly or 200 daily moving average and the 200 daily exponential moving average, both the simple and exponential moving averages are roughly in that area. And of course, there is a good bit of trading volume on the VPVR in that area also, so it will provide a decent amount of resistance once again. So our trek back upwards is not going to be an easy one, but given that the Bitcoin halving is less than a month away, we could probably break it if we start getting that that new money coming into the space. But that just remains to be seen. Now, however, if we do go lower before the halving, through the halving, don't panic. Last halving, the halving before that didn't see. What I'm trying to say is it's not supposed to send us straight to the moon right at the day of the halving, or even the day after, or the week after, or even the month after, or 2 months after, or 4 months after. The run is going to start off slow, and then it's going to take some time, probably a year, year and a half, maybe 2 years before we actually see the peak to the next run, for the next run. So, short term, if we go down, honestly, it's a good price to accumulate. I need sleep. Anyways, yes, it's a good price to accumulate more Bitcoin if we break down and back down towards the $5,500 area, which happens to be where the 200 weekly moving average is roughly around. I think it's roughly at the $5,500, $5,600 area, so I don't really see us breaking below that. We may end up coming back down here and then going back up. But do keep in mind, like I said before, we do have the Adam and Eve formation here, so that technically is a pattern that says that we should be going upward, so do take that in consideration. We also still have, well, this volume isn't necessarily falling anymore. It's kind of flattened and leveled out. So if we do have a break upwards or break downwards, do expect a spike in volume. If there's no spike in volume, I wouldn't really trust that break. Like for example, when we fell right here, there wasn't really much volume with it, but then we had that spike right here. There was a nice spike of volume with that, and that wasn't necessarily a fake out. It brought us up to, what, 7,200? Of course, we hit resistance here, and then we ended up getting rejected. Then we took another shot at it the very next day, and we got rejected again. One thing I do got to say about resistance or support, I mean, if for those of you who don't really know too much about trading, the more times the price hits a resistance or hits a support, the weaker that resistance or support gets. So we've hit it quite a few times now. We've actually broken it right here. But with every new touch of that resistance gets weaker. So if we keep attacking it, we're likely going to see some upside, and we're probably going just to head on up through 7,400, maybe even take that out, but that remains to be seen. So to sum up this part of the video, basically what I am watching for is either a new higher high or a new lower low. Above 74.66 is a higher high, below 64.46 is a lower low. If it creates a lower low, expect further downside. If we expect us to, further downside. Wow, I'm really fucking this up. A higher high, expect further upside. So with that, I think that's all I really got for the price action here. Let's see if there's anything interesting in the news. Okay, news. Let's see what we got going on here. New research says Bitcoin price jumps in response to news of clear regulation. 166 billion asset manager Renaissance eyes Bitcoin futures for flagship fund. 75 billion hedge fund Renaissance Technology is okay, that's basically the same thing, just different amount. We're at 10 billion medallion fund gains. TD sequentials flashes 9, hinting at a drop for stocks and Bitcoin price. Bitcoin, yeah, that's another thing. I did show that the S&P was forming a rising wedge, which is a bearish pattern, and if it does drop off, there could be a potential fall for Bitcoin as well. So do keep that in mind, because if they start having a major sell-off in the regular stock market, it may cause the same thing to happen to Bitcoin. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that it will happen to Bitcoin. It's just a possibility, so it's not 100%. Also, another thing I forgot to mention about Bitcoin is the fact that there is going to be unless we drop before the markets open, the futures markets open, there's going to be a futures gap in Bitcoin at roughly 7K 80 bucks, something like that, 7,080 bucks. If we're lower than that when the futures market opens, then there's not going to be a futures gap. But if we're above that, we may wick down and close it right after the futures market opens. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Takes COVID-19 or Bitcoin to make banks better. Tyler Winklevoss, Tether mints 120 billion in USDT as Bitcoin and crypto markets rebound. Yeah, Tether's been on a minting spree recently itself. I think it minted, I forget how much it minted, but the 120 billion is just the newest addition to what's done recently. Institutional investors pour $498,900,000 into Bitcoin and Ethereum as crypto fund executive declares cats out of the bag. Yes, I guess that's Grayscale, and from what they've been seeing, the institutional investors have been diving into the crypto assets, Ethereum and Bitcoin recently, actually over the past, hold on, let's go into it. Let's load, okay. Somehow I ended up at the bottom of the article when I opened it, but okay. Alright. New numbers from the digital asset management giant Grayscale show investors are collectively throwing big money into Ethereum for the first time on top of record investment numbers for Bitcoin. Ethereum has been doing pretty well recently, by the way. I think it's up to $183 right now at the time of recording this video. It was in an ascending triangle pattern like a week or two ago, and then it ended up having a breakout in the upwards direction, and when it did break out, it kind of traded sideways upwards. It didn't, but it's up further. It actually has been going up faster than Bitcoin has, so that's something to keep an eye on. I do personally have a stash of Ethereum. That's me personally. I don't know if you do or not, but Ethereum, what I believe is during the next run, Ethereum will likely see some massive upside, just like Bitcoin. And you might actually be able to make more money in Ethereum than Bitcoin, but Bitcoin would be the safest of the crypto assets. That's why I have my biggest portion in Bitcoin, and I have been diversifying throughout other crypto assets, but Bitcoin is my largest bag. Ethereum, second largest. Okay, according to Grayscale's Q1 2020 report, institutions are taking a serious interest in ETH, enough to print a record quarterly inflow into the Grayscale Ethereum Trust. Spencer Noon, the head of crypto investments at DTC Capital, says the numbers show Ethereum has reached a turning point with high net worth investors. Institutional investors are buying ETH. The cat is officially out of the bag. From the latest Grayscale report, Ethereum Trust saw $110 million in Q1 inflows. This is more than all of its previous inflows combined for the past 2 years, which was $95.8 million. That's pretty damn good. In the weeks prior to the end of the quarter, inflows of Ethereum actually surpassed Bitcoin. Across the entire quarter, investors poured a record $389 million into the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, in addition to the $110 million invested in the Grayscale Ethereum Trust, for a total of $498.9 million, a $500 million. Grayscale Digital Assets Trusts, I went too far. Trusts are all fully backed by real cryptocurrency. across all of its products, which also offer exposure to XRP, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Ethereum Classic, Stellar Lumen, Zcash, and Horizon. Grayscale reports a record inflow total of 503.7 million. So there wasn't too much that went towards those other assets, but Bitcoin and Ethereum definitely saw some action there. I'm not going to read any further into this. I will leave the link to this article in the description below. And I think that's really it for news. I'm going to go to the COVID chart just to see where we're at. Yeah. So, 19. As for its... let's start with the case count, which is roughly 2.4 million. It's actually 2,382,064 cases, so it's roughly 2.4 million. Cases in the United States are 746,379, and total deaths worldwide is 165,636. I'm not really going to go over this statistic over here. That's the amount of people who have been tested. I have already said that once, that this is a dumb statistic to keep. So, oh yeah, for the U.S., I think there was a study done recently that said that there may be dramatically higher amounts of cases than what has been recorded, because people, obviously not everybody who gets sick goes to the hospital. So I think everybody actually knows this already, that there's probably more cases than what they're showing. But according to the study, they're saying that potentially up to 5% of the entire population may have contracted this virus. So that means that 95% of this of the population in the United States has not caught this virus. So that means what we do from here still has to be done with caution, because the threat still remains that this could potentially get much worse if shit's done wrong. So I think that's why Trump has handed down the reins of what each and every state can do to the state governments, to the governments of each state, as to what they want to decide to do as to how they want to open each state. Pennsylvania is the state that I live in, and they just ordered that we all wear face masks when we go out in public. That order was, I think that order was already in place, but now it has become officially mandatory to wear these masks. I think we're also opening liquor stores for curbside pickup, if that interests anybody in Pennsylvania. I think Florida has opened some beaches, and people were flocking to them, and not exactly following the 6 feet apart rule, so that could be a problem there, but I guess there's police going around telling them about it and everything, and telling them that, hey, you should stay the fuck away from everybody else and all this, or whatever. Not in those exact words, but yeah. So, the 2.4 million cases we currently have is 600,000 more than last week, which was 600,000 more than the previous week. So that means we're still keeping a trend of 600,000 per week. It was doubling every week, but now we're just at a steady amount every week. That means it's still going up, but not as bad. So, yeah, if you need any information about 19, you can always visit the CDC's website, the World Health Organization's website, your state or local government's website, or your federal government's website, or whatever government website, or you can always check in with your physician or whatever else. There's information out there. If you go out in public, of course, you got to stay at least 6 feet away from everybody. I don't know what your state's guidelines are, but if you must wear masks, wear masks. Always carry hand sanitizer on you. Always wash your hands when you can. Don't touch your face, and all that other shit. Just try to do your part to prevent the spread of this virus, and we could get through this. I think that's really all I have for you guys today. Yeah. So yeah, that is all I have for you guys today. Stay safe out there. I will see you all next time.